it, but let's just do some level of particle. Now, remember we did something like print. No, don't let me be doing this here. Print print even numbers. So now let us do something that, okay, we are going to print numbers, even numbers from 0 to a certain number x, and this value will be an input from our user, right? So the user will give us the input. Let's say the user wants to print even numbers between 0 and 50, for example. So the user will input 50 and we print it out, or another user may want to print even number between 0 and 100, for example. But the point is this: we are going to accept an input from user. Then based on that input, we are going to print the even number between 0 and that particular number. So now let's go to the snippet. And if you remember that if you want to get an input, why am I not typing? It's not typing. Why? What's going on? Uh-uh. Wonderful. I don't know why that is not typing. So let me just use my Visual Studio then. Or maybe let me close. Maybe there's some kind of problem with that. Let me close and reopen. Okay. So now, for us to get input from user, we can use a prompt. We say enter the maximum, or let me just enter a number, simple. Just enter a number. Just make it simple. So now this, if I run it, it will create this window where a user can input a number. So, and once that is okay, if you click OK, the number will now be transferred into a variable. Let me just call it number. Now, this input from this prompt is always a string, always. So that simply means that if we want to use it as a number, we need to convert what is coming from here into a number, right? Into a number. So now to do that, we need to wrap this up. Okay. Let me split it so that you understand what I'm talking about. If I want to determine this, what type of data is this? Yes, I know. Favor, after the class, we will revisit the assignment. So now, If I want to know the type of data, the data type, all I need to do is print out the type of this number, right? The type of this number, what is the type? If I input 45, for example, and I say, okay, you can see that it is a string. So it is a string in there. So, and we cannot work with string. We need to convert it into an actual number. Now, to convert into an actual number, we use what is called a parse. A parse, either float or int, but I'm going to use integer. So I will take this into this, right? And I will store it again into the number. Remember, I can do this. So now by doing this, if I alert again, the type of number, you will see that it is now a number. If I do 45 again and say, okay, now you can see it is now a number. So it is now, I can now use it to do whatever I want to do. Now, instead of me writing this one line here, another line here, I can easily, because this, everything here is, everything here is this number, because you can remember it has been assigned to this. So I can jolly as well just write this pass int in front of here, then wrap this up in a bracket. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. And the reason is just to reduce the number of code lines I am writing. So now I'm going to just take this out and paste it there. Then just wrap it up because it's a function. So I can take this line out. If I run it again, just to test 45, it will still be a number, as you can see. So now I have the number from the user. I can now say use my for loop. Let n equal, assign a 0 to n. Then I will check, is n less than or equal to number. I'm going to increment n. Then I will have my code block in there. So I can now see console.log, because I want to print it on the console.log, right? N. Now, if I do this and I run my code, and I say 45, you will see it printing 0 to 45, right? Including the even numbers and the odd numbers, right? But remember, I said we want just the even numbers. So we can do something. Now, instead of increasing this by 1, right? We can increase it by 2. Maybe n plus equal 2. Can you remember, recollect this operator? Demola, can you recollect this operator, what it does?
So I don't hear you. I want.
I said this operator, plus equal operator. Do you know what it is doing? Do you know the function? Do you know? Like now I am doing n plus equal to. What does that mean?
Um, does it like is it like the the thing on the right is added to the thing on the left or something? Like the variable on the right is added to the variable on the left.
Okay. So what this means is this. N is added to 2 and then reassigned back to n. So if n initially was 0, so you now add 0 to 2 plus 2, which is now 2. So 2 will now be assigned to n. So, and that is what we are going to do right here. Instead of increasing by 1, we are going to do plus equal 2 right there. So if we run this code again, let's see, 45. Let me, okay, let me clear so that you can see it properly. 45. So you can see that is starting from 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 to 44, because 45 is not even, it is odd. Therefore, 45 is not printed out. Now, this is a very simple way of printing out even numbers. At the same time, if I want to use continue, I could have as well still increase this by 1, plus plus, increase by 1. Then I will say if n is divisible by 2 and it gives me the remainder of 0, I want you to do this. Print n, print the value of n, then continue. Continue. Remember that um, continue will, okay, let me just do something here. Before I write this continue, I want to prove something to you. Let me print console.log hello, just to differentiate it. Hello there, just hello. So now if I do this, if I run it, let's run it, and I have say 50 there. Let me clear this console and I say okay. Now you can see that I still got the even numbers out, but after every even number, right, I have the word hello printed out. Now, let me put continue here. Continue. And see what will happen. Remember, the continue is now before the console.log hello. If I clear the console and I run 50. Now, you can see now that the hello is not being displayed again, right? Only the even numbers are displayed. Why is that so? When you go through the loop and this n is divisible by 2, n will be printed out. The moment it gets to this continue, it will jump from here to the end of the loop. The next thing is it will now go back and increment this. Then after this, it will check for the condition. If it is true, it will come back to into this code block. This will never be executed. It will never, because it will always jump it. It will always jump from here, from this continue. After executing continue, to jump from there to the end of the loop, then go back in circle, then continues like that. This will never be executed. Is there any question? No question. Okay. Now, let us run this code one more time with at least different input value. Let's say 100 from a user. And I click OK. You can see printed out 0 to 100. So since it's continuing that we are doing here, this is not needed. And since it is just console.log n that we are having there, this is also not actually dead. I just use it to explain the code. So if I clear this screen and I run the program again, let me this time 200. I click OK, you will see only the even numbers got printed out till 200. So let's quickly talk about that break. Yes, I know we have talked about the break in switch. Let's say I want to stop the program when the value gets to 50, right? No matter the number imputed by the user. Once this value gets to 50, I want to break out of the loop. So break out of the loop. But at the same time, I want you to still print the value of n, the one that you were able to get out before you break out of the loop. If I clear this console and run my code, let's say I input 300 and I click OK, you will see that 0 from 0 to 49 is even printed. Yeah, for 50 will not be printed because we say once it is 50, just break out. It will break out entirely from this loop to get out. It's like exiting the loop. If you want to print that last number 50, all you need to do is print it before the break. If I clear the console and I run my code again on 400, you will see once it gets to 50, it stops. Any question? No question. Okay. Now, I will proceed. I haven't explained and with example the break and continue. For me to effectively explain return to you, we are going to discuss about what is called a function. And what is a function? Why do we need a function? Now, If you have in your code lines of code that you copy and paste into different places, you copy and paste the same number of code, the same number of statements, you continue to copy and paste in different places. It is a signal that you need to use a function. Function helps us not to kind of repeat ourselves, right? Doing copy and pasting into different places. So, and it is a block of code, just like this for loop has a block of code, right? Same thing, function has its own block of code. So let me quickly take you to the board so that we can discuss what function is all about. Now, before I go into the function, remember that when we treated a variable that can hold a single item, for example, var x, and we can assign, say, 100 to it, this kind of variable can hold just one item. And for me to call this number, I'm going to just say x. So calling x, this x, we return to me, return or give me the value of 100. So that means that if I do console.log on this x now, I will see 100 being displayed on the browser or on the console. So at the same time, if I want to hold more than one data, I will use my array, right? And for me to declare an array, I must use my square brackets. So I can have 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on and so forth. Then for me to call any number in this set of even numbers, all I need to do is specify the index position. So now I am calling the value at position 4, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this will return me the value of what? 10, because 10 is the value at position 4. In like manner, that we declare variable x as a single data holder, and the same manner we declare an array of x that can hold more than one data. So for us to define or declare a function, you will use the function keyword. The function keyword, function. Then you will give it a variable name. I can say maybe this is average, for example. Then I use the parentheses and the code block. The code block. So whatever, all the statements I'm going to write here, they are now acting as a unit. Acting as a unit. So which simply means that anytime I call this function, just like I call the x and as holding the single data, just like I call that x, which is holding multiple data, I can call this average by saying average. But the only difference between the X of a single item is just to call the variable. And let's say the X is to now put a square bracket and call whatever position, the index position that is, maybe index position 2, for example. But for me to call a function, I'm going to use the name of the function, then this parenthesis. Please note the difference between this one, this parenthesis, and a square bracket. They are different. So now, let us go back and do a little exercise, classwork, so that the demonstration, so that you can understand how to declare if and have a function and how to call it. So if I go to the this snippet, I can create a function by using the function keyword, and I say average, for example. Then I give it this, the parentheses and the code block. So if this function is just doing one thing, for example, alert, multiply this number by 5. Multiply this number by 5, then print it on the browser. If I run my code, now I'm running the code. I say 20 now. If I click OK, you will see that nothing is displayed. The reason is that, yes, I have declared this function, but I did not call it. So I need to call this function before it can swing into action. And the moment I call it here, average, I say run, right? This average will now come here into this code block and execute everything inside there. So if I run my code now and I say 20, you will see 100 is now printed out, because 20 times 5 gives me 100. Is there any question so far?
No, sir.
Okay. Sister Wajesu, is there any question?
No, sir.
Okay. So now, let us go to the main reason why I decided to introduce you to function. We are still coming back to this function in a later lesson, because function is very big and it is imperative for you to understand that function concept. Now, let's say instead of alert, I say return this number multiplied by 5. Now, if I run this code and I say 30, you see nothing is printed out. Okay, I won't say nothing. You can see it on the console. But this is just JavaScript being benevolent to give you this output. Now, whenever I call this function will come here, then run this statement. It should first of all evaluate this expression number, which in my case was 30, multiplied by 5, which is now 150. So this will now return It's like, remember when I used a container that time to explain to you variable. So now I have a container called average. Average. So whenever I call this function, this function will now return back to the caller the value of what? Number times 5. It will return that value. So the moment the function returns a value, you must do something to use that value. Else, it will just be thrown into, I don't know, a cloud somewhere that you can't even visualize. Hmm? So now, if I say, let me clear my screen. If I say return number times 5, so I can now call this function, and whatever value that is being returned, being transferred into this code, I can now decide to use another variable called results to hold that data. So the solution of this will now be stored in Java in results. Then I can now alert results, right? Alert results. Is there any question with this? Any question?
No, sir.
No question. So whatever calculation is done here, this average will now return this value. So into, sorry, it will return this value into result here. Is there any question? No question, right? So now, once this average returns this calculation, it will go into the result. Then I can now print out the results. So let's now print out the results. 40. So you can now see 40 times 5 is 200. So now I have the value. I'm doing something with that value. Right. So is there any question? Is there any question?
No, sir.
No question. Good. So now, always remember that to declare a function, you use a function keyword, then the name of the variable for that function, then this parenthesis. You cannot declare a function in this manner. No, this is not a function. Why? Because there is no parenthesis in front of it. So I want you to take note of the nuances, right? Now, there are some situations that a function accepts what is called parameter. Parameter. A parameter is that variable that you use when you are declaring your function. For example, if I decide to put a parameter here, say S, right? Now, let me go to the board to explain that. So you have a function, and now I'm using a parameter called s here. So I can, whatever, when I call this average in within any part of my program, and I put, say, 5 here. Now, let me say 8, so that to distinguish it from s and 5. Now, we call this parameter. Parameter. But when the average, the average function is now being called, the value passed into the parentheses, we call it arguments. So now, once I call this average function and I pass this argument of 8, what it's saying is that anywhere you use s in your code, maybe I just want to alert s times 5. So wherever I'm using s, I will use 8 to replace it there. So 8 times 5. So I will alert 40. Let's go back to the code. So let's say now I've given it a parameter here. So I want to use this parameter s right there, because whatever value that is passed in here will be passed to this value here and multiplied by 5 to be returned. So for me to call this average now, I must pass in a data here. I have number here, so I can pass this number into that parenthesis. So if the user inputs 40, for example, 40 will be passed to this s. So s is now 40. So 40 times 5, that is what? 200. If I run this code, 40, so you can see 200 printed out. Is there any question? Is there any question? I want answers, please. Is there any question?
Yes. No, sir. No, sir.
No. Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, Feromi, no. Ewa Jesu, is there any question?
No, sir.
Mary, is there any question?
No, sir.
Joshua, is there any question?
No.
Okay. So I can now pause the class. I'm going to stop here. So let me clear my screen. So the assignments or homework, as case may be, 1, write a function that has 2 parameters, adds them, and return the sum of the 2 numbers. Print out the sum. Two, write a function that has two parameters multiplies them and return their product. Print out the product. Is the assignment clear enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Is there any question from any quarter?
Can you
Okay. Can I
explain the assignment?
explain the assignment?
Yeah, because I can't really
Okay. Let me go to the other board. Now, let's say this is a function, right? So I say parameters are this, something that is inside this. It's like I'm teaching you the assignment now. No, I won't do this.
Yes, sir.
It's like I'm doing the assignment. Yes. So what the assignment is saying is that write a function. Let me give a sample function. Let me see. Let me see this one. This is a function, and I named this even number, and it has a parameter, right? But in your case, it will what have two parameters. So one function, you have those parameters, then return it, then you print out. The second one, you multiply the two parameters, then you print out the product. Is that clear enough, Demola?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I cannot go beyond that because if I do, I'll be doing the assignment already. The assignment is so simple. If you are listening to the class today, it's not difficult. Okay. All right. In the absence of any other question, I think it is safe to call it a day. So see you on Saturday. By God's grace.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.